How's it going, guys? It's K Cars, and in today's video I wanted to give you guys a quick kind of follow-up video on all the cooling parts that we got replaced on my 2001 Jeep Cherokee XJ about a year ago. I wanted to kind of go through how it's actually been holding up, if we've had any kind of overheating issues. Then of course, as you guys also know, we did recently sell the Challenger's Cat Pack, so of course you guys are going to be stuck with Jeep Cherokee XJ videos until we get the new Challenger replacement, which I will be giving you guys an update on that at the end of this video, so make sure you guys stay until the end if you want to hear about that. So basically about a year ago, like I said, I was having a few overheating issues with my Jeep Cherokee XJ here. Now basically it wasn't anything too serious, like it wasn't like, it wasn't leaking coolant or anything like that. It wasn't like overheating too bad. So basically if you look at the temperature gauge right here, you can see 210 is pretty much the normal operating temperature. The highest that it's ever been is just that one dash above 210. So it really hasn't overheated like a crazy amount or anything like that. But basically what happened is that anytime I would drive it in like, 90-degree weather or something like that, when it's 90 degrees or higher than that, even if it's like a 20-minute drive, then it would kind of smelled like the brakes were burning, but of course it wasn't the brakes because there was kind of like steam coming out of the front grille. So one of my friends told me that it could have just been the coolant kind of evaporating off of the exhaust, for example. Maybe there actually was a coolant leak and it was just dripping on the exhaust, and that's what was causing all the steam and that kind of like burnt brake smell. But it only happened whenever the temperature was hot outside, and it was above 210 whenever that happened as well. So that only happened probably like 3 times ever since I've had this Jeep. The first 2 times I really didn't do much about it. I didn't really think anything of it because it still ran just fine. I could still drive it without any issues. But basically what happened is that after that actually happened, whenever I shut the Jeep off, and then the next time I went to start it, it would kind of sound like it was running very rough, maybe misfiring, and then the throttle just didn't have any kind of response to it. So, I would start it up and it would just, kind of sound like it was misfiring, run very rough, and then I could press the gas pedal as hard as I wanted to all the way down, and literally nothing would happen. So I'm really not sure what would cause that, but if any of you guys know, definitely drop that down in the comment section below, because I definitely am interested to hear if anybody else has had that happen to your XJ after overheating. And basically the third time that happened, what I did is that since I actually had to, drive the Jeep and, actually be able to use this Jeep to actually drive, what I did is, I kind of just put it in reverse, tried to drive it that way, then put it in neutral just to see if I could actually rev it up. And, after kind of putting it in neutral a few times and putting it in reverse and back in drive, that it kind of did help. I don't know if that doesn't really seem like the proper way to fix that kind of issue, but it did work temporarily. It actually get rid of that roughness in the idle. So I'm not really sure what I was doing, but it did work. So of course, whenever I did that, the Jeep still was overheating, but at least I could still drive it to where I needed to go. So basically, after the third time of that happening, I said, I definitely want to keep this Jeep as long as I can, and I definitely do want to preserve it. So of course I have to be able to take care of it. So right away I started doing a whole bunch of research on different types of water pumps, thermostats, basically everything that I needed to do to get the cooling system top notch and the best that I could get. So basically what I read online after doing a whole bunch of research is that these old XJs really are the happiest with the OEM genuine Mopar parts. So that's actually what I ended up doing, is that pretty much for all the cooling parts except for the radiator, I got all genuine Mopar parts, which I will get out here and show you guys what all we got replaced here. Alright, so don't mind all the dirtiness of this engine bay here. I definitely need to get it all cleaned up. But I will say, I did drive this thing for about 20 minutes right before filming this video, and it is very hot. Now, it wasn't overheating or anything like that, but I did have to sit at a stoplight for honestly 10 minutes, and I'm not even exaggerating. Like, really not even sure what happened. I think the cars in front of me just didn't drive up far enough to actually reach the sensors for the actual lights to turn green. But basically, we pretty much got all the cooling parts replaced except for the radiator here. So the radiator is still the stock one. Whenever I took it to the shop, I told them to take a quick look at the radiator, and if it needs to be replaced, go ahead and replace that as well. And they said after taking a look at it, they really didn't see a reason to replace it, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So basically, just to give you guys a quick rundown of what we did get replaced. So starting off here with the electric fan, This actually is not a genuine Mopar electric fan. I believe this one is actually made by Omix, which makes stock Jeep parts. So it's pretty similar to a brand called Crown Automotive, which you guys are probably all familiar with as well if you're into the XJ stuff. So this one is Omix, like I said. So I did install this on my own. It was super simple, and I do have a install tutorial on my channel if you guys want to check that out. So like I said, electric fan was the first thing that I replaced, because the stock electric fan on this Jeep literally did not work at all. So I could literally put my hand on the fan and try to turn it, and it just wouldn't turn at all. It just had a whole bunch of resistance, so I could barely turn it with my hand. And even when the temperature actually triggered the electric fan to turn on, of course it couldn't spin at all because it just had way too much resistance to be able to spin. And now if I show you guys how it spins right now, you can see it just freely spins just how it should. And now, of course, whenever the temperature triggers the electric fan, of course it also does turn on. But that actually happens way less than before, because we do have brand new cooling parts here as well. So basically, after the electric fan, I took this Jeep to a shop for them to replace the other parts of the cooling system here. So basically all of those were we had the water pump, the thermostat housing, the radiator hoses, and we also got the pulley replaced as well, and the belt replaced as well. So basically all of the important cooling parts except for the radiator were replaced last year with genuine Mopar parts, and I have to say I've been extremely happy with how this Jeep has been holding up and performing. Literally haven't had any kind of overheating issues with this thing after getting all those parts replaced. So I will admit though, if it's a day like 100 degrees Fahrenheit outside, then the temperature sometimes will climb a little bit above 210, but that's when the electric fan actually kicks in and cools it back down to right where it should be, either at 210 or right below 210. So before we got all these parts replaced, whenever the Jeep was overheating, of course the electric fan was getting triggered, but of course it just had way too much resistance that it couldn't actually spin. So nothing was actually able to cool this Jeep down once it did cross over that 210 mark. Now, I believe the actual threshold for the electric fan to get triggered is like 218 or something like that. Either that, or on some models of the Jeep, it turns on with the AC. So that's a good way to test it as well. And I've also heard that if you disconnect the temperature sensor right here as well, then the fan should also turn on. So a few different ways to test out if your electric fan works out. It just depends on what year XJ you have. But basically with mine, I knew it wasn't working because, it was climbing over 210, and, I was trying to spin it with my hands and it just had way too much resistance. So that's the way that I figured out that it just was not working at all. And along with getting all these parts replaced, we also did do a full coolant flush. So basically, just to give a quick rundown of the list again, we got the electric fan, water pump, thermostat housing, upper and lower radiator hoses, belt, pulley, and coolant flush. So that's pretty much the entire list of what we got done with the cooling system about a year ago. And like I said, it's been holding up very well, no issues whatsoever. And even if it does go above 210, like I said, the electric fan kicks right on and it cools down right to where it should be, at 210 or right below 210. So very happy with how it's been holding up so far. And then something else I wanted to mention about the lower radiator hose is that the stock one actually has a spring inside of it. So I can't remember exactly if it's the lower or the upper, but I am pretty sure that it's the lower one that does have that spring, and that's just so that it doesn't collapse under pressure. Now this new one does not have a spring inside of it, but what I was told is that they're just reinforced so well that they just don't collapse under that pressure. So it's really nothing to be worried about. And then also, one downside of having that spring on the stock hose is that sometimes whenever it gets all rusty, those rust particles can, just go back into your radiator, into your engine, and that's never good. So having that springless hose on the lower radiator hose right there, I think it's a very good idea, especially since it's reinforced and it just doesn't collapse under pressure. So definitely a pretty good upgrade right there. Now I know you guys are probably wondering that since I went to a shop to get most of those cooling parts replaced except for the electric fan, how much did I actually pay for everything? So I do have the estimate right here in front of me, so I'm going to read off to you guys how much I paid for everything. So basically for the water pump, it was $187 for labor, $125 for the actual water pump with the gasket, $55 for the water pump inlet tube. So just for the water pump alone, it was $388 total. And then for the thermostat, they charged me $77 in labor. The actual thermostat was $38.99. Thermostat housing was $53. Thermostat housing gasket was $4. So total for the thermostat was $183. And for the radiator hoses, they charged me $77 for labor. For the upper hose, it was $62. For the lower hose, it was $76, for a total of $227 for the hoses, both upper and lower. And then for the belt, it was $55 in labor, $36 for the actual belt. For the idler pulley, it was $22 in labor, $70 for the actual pulley. And then for the coolant flush, it was $143 in labor and $51 for the actual coolant. So, as you guys see, this stuff is definitely not cheap. So that's pretty much how much I paid for all of those cooling parts. And then I believe for the electric fan, it was like, I think 50 bucks. And of course, since I did that on my own, it was just free labor on my own. So, you know, this stuff definitely isn't cheap, but if I want to be able to keep this Jeep for as long as possible and maintain it and preserve it and keep it in this good condition that it's in right now, I definitely, you know, this stuff definitely does take money. As you guys know, the Jeep acronym is, of course, just empty every pocket. I'm sure there's a bunch more acronyms for Jeep, but that's definitely one of them that is very true, because as with any kind of vehicle project, it's basically always a money pit. So, you know, I've definitely enjoyed being able to preserve and restore this Jeep as much as I have so far, and I definitely do continue on keeping this thing preserved as much as I can. Now, of course, when it comes to my overall review a year later of having all these parts replaced and driving this Jeep with the new parts, you know, like I said before, I'm definitely very happy with how it's been holding up. Even when driving in 100-degree weather, of course, it does climb a little bit above 210. But now that we also do have a working electric fan that doesn't have a whole bunch of resistance, it's able to actually cool it back down once it actually does climb above 210. And like I said, I believe the actual threshold for the fan to turn on is around 218. So once it goes above that mark, then of course the fan turns on and it goes right back down to right below 210, just how it should. So, you know, even if I'm sitting at a red light, like I said, you know, I drove for probably 20 minutes today. I sat at a red light for like 10 minutes straight, and it's probably like mid 80s today. So, you know, not too hot, but if you're sitting at a stoplight in traffic, then that's definitely when cars usually overheat, because there's no airflow coming into the engine to actually be able to cool it down. So of course, as you start driving, and it's actually a very noticeable difference, because once you start driving, then you can literally watch the temperature gauge just drop down. So, you know, as you drive, you get increased airflow and it just cools the engine down that way. Or of course, the electric fan turns on and that also cools it down as well. So, like I said, definitely haven't had any kind of complaints with this Jeep so far a year later, and definitely have to stay on top of the maintenance to be able to keep this thing preserved and restored how it is. And if you guys are also planning on replacing your cooling system in your XJ, then I definitely would recommend going with genuine Mopar parts. That's pretty much what most people recommend. Some people do recommend going with a high flow water pump, like I think it's called the Flow Cooler water pump for the XJs. I did see a few good reviews on that pump as well. I also have heard that just going with genuine Mopar parts is what makes these XJs the happiest and just run the best that they can. So along with that, I also did see the Mishimoto radiator. So that's also, you know, I've seen good reviews about that one. It's like a aftermarket performance radiator for the XJs. So I have heard good things about that one. But once again, the shop told me that they didn't see anything wrong with the radiator, so they just kept the stock one in there for now. Now, when the time comes for me to actually need to replace the radiator, I would also just go ahead and get a OEM replacement for that as well. Now, there are a few different brands that make OEM replacements, and there's also a few brands that make upgraded radiators. So Mishimoto actually makes both. They do have an upgraded performance radiator, and they also do have an OEM replacement as well. Then another common one for OEM replacement is made by Spectra. So I believe AutoZone actually carries those. So, you know, I've heard good things about pretty much every radiator out there, but I think when the time comes, I will just end up going with the Spectra OEM replacement. That's pretty much what most people go with whenever they just want to keep it genuine, like OEM replacement. So like I said, basically in my experience, I've heard a lot of people say that these Jeeps are happy with the stock Mopar genuine parts. And in my experience, that has been true. So of course, I've been happy with how everything has been holding up with this Jeep. Definitely excited to continue preserving this Jeep and restoring it as much as possible. And of course, also taking it on a few trips, some mild off-roading, and yeah, just seeing where it can take us. So now that we got all that out of the way, I wanted to talk to you guys about the Challenger replacement. So basically, if you guys have been keeping up, you know that I sold the Challenger and we are waiting on my replacement for that car. Now, whenever I sold the Challenger, I placed the factory order for the Challenger's replacement the same day, and they told me it would be about 5 to 6 months. So the unfortunate update that I have for you guys today is that the order has been confirmed, and that's all I know. I don't even have a VIN number. I don't even have an estimated delivery date. Right now, I just have to keep waiting. It's probably been about a month since I've placed that order, and still haven't heard anything back except that the order has been accepted and processed and confirmed, I guess. So the next step in the process is for it to be scheduled for build, and then the next step after that is to be build in progress. After that, it's going to be shipped and then delivered. So definitely have a lot more waiting to do, and it's going to be several months. Like I said, they told me 5 to 6 months. So I'm definitely going to be very impatient during this time, but of course we still do have the XJ to make videos with and enjoy. So you guys are going to be stuck seeing this Jeep a lot more for the next 5 to 6 months. Hopefully it's not longer than that. But like I said, definitely very excited to have that new vehicle coming on the channel. I think you guys are definitely going to be enjoying it. I know I for sure will. And to be honest, I think I'm actually going to enjoy it more than I enjoyed the Challenger. Not saying anything negative about the Challenger, but I do feel like with this new vehicle, I'm going to be able to do a whole lot more, have a lot more fun, drive it a lot more places for sure. And I really do feel like it'll just give me a lot more freedom to kind of, explore new places. We can take it to the track. We can basically drive it anywhere. And, if you guys caught some of my previous videos talking about, kind of brainstorming what I want to replace the Challenger with, then I definitely did drop some pretty big hints on what the vehicle actually is. And if you guys have been following up with those videos, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. And really hope you guys are also as excited as I am to watch that new content with the new vehicle. So it's going to be a whole bunch of fun. So like I said, I definitely would like to take it to the track, see how it can do. And I also do want to take it on some trips. And of course, whenever I first get it, I definitely do want to enjoy its stock and kind of wait until I get bored of it. And then after that, of course, I definitely do want to put some modifications on it and kind of just see what we can do. So definitely going to be very impatient for now, but definitely also very excited to get that vehicle. And it's going to be a whole bunch of fun. So that's going to do it for this video. Like I said, no complaints after 1 year of having those new cooling parts on my Jeep Cherokee XJ here. And if you guys want to share your own experiences with your cooling system on your Jeep, definitely drop those down in the comment section below. And if you guys have any questions or comments, drop those down in the comment section below. And if you guys have any video suggestions for videos you would like to see in the future, also drop those down in the comment section below. And if you guys liked this video or found it entertaining, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, thanks for watching.